Before the newborn hearing screening was passed, very often babies were born deaf, weren't caught or diagnosed until much later. For example, like my parents, as I said, I was 18 months. Some of my friends, they weren't diagnosed until they were 2 or 3 or 4. And so, especially if they're the second or third child in the family, it's hard. I was actually the first child, and so there was no other previous child to compare with. So, maybe, my mom thought she was just functioning at a different pace, or maybe she was just a quiet kid. If your children have sort of strong eye gaze, I could feel vibrations. I was very quick to sort of look around and recognize things in my environment. She thought I was actually responding to sound, but I was a visual baby, and I'm actually still a visual adult now. So she thought, maybe she's maybe a little slow, or she's just going to catch up. And now I'm surprised that some babies still pass the newborn hearing screening, but they're actually deaf. There's interesting stories to tell because I guess they make it through the process, and then sometimes they actually lose their hearing at a little bit of a later age. They can hear in one ear but not in the other, or the other one loses hearing a little bit later down the road. And parents think it's the same as what happened, back in my time. Oh, maybe they're just a little bit delayed, or they're just sort of a quiet kid. They think it's something else. Maybe they're a special needs child. Maybe there's a cognitive disability or autism. They're often misdiagnosed as one of the other categories. And then they find out they're deaf. They're like, oh, they just have a hearing level that needs some more support at home. You need to sign. Well, it's rare when a newborn baby, we'll say, I don't like to say pass, actually, babies have a diversity in their hearing levels than saying it's a pass fail, kind of approach that feels very demeaning to the families. If their baby has failed, it's basically, within a couple of days of their birth, their baby has already failed. So to say your child has a diverse hearing level and then refer them for more testing, that's when it gets confirmed. Sometimes babies have fluid in their ears at times, and then upon second test, they found out that they're hearing and they have a normal hearing level. I don't understand why some deaf babies do, quote unquote, pass their hearing tests. I don't know why that is, because most of them who are deaf don't. Maybe my sort of theory is maybe it's because they were maybe potentially born hearing and they actually lost their hearing sort of rapidly. That could be one potential reason.